Let us pray. Creator of all, three in one, in whose image we are all created, so none is more special nor more privileged in your kingdom than another. Guide us on our journey in the next few minutes to discover how we might be purveyors of justice that is truly for all. Amen. So let's talk a bit about the symbolism of Lady Justice. Those balanced scales represent impartiality and the obligation of law, wherever it exists, by judges, juries, etc., to weigh the evidence that they've been presented in a fair manner, and that each side of a legal case will be heard evenly, fairly. The sword symbolizes enforcement and respect, and means that justice will stand by her decisions, her rulings, and was willing to take action. The fact that that sword is unsheathed, open so you can see it, is a very visible sign that justice is transparent and should not be used as an instrument of fear. A double-edged blade, which she carries, signifies that justice can rule against either side presented to her. And it's bound to enforce the rules as well as to protect the innocent and the ones who may not have won that case. Now, the blindfold began as an accusation against Justice, who was blind to the needs of the people over which she ruled. She was not tolerant. We have come to know that blindness, that blind justice, as one that says, everybody looks the same for me and I can't see them. I am blind to what they look like on the outside. Their sexual orientation, the color of the skin, the kind of clothes they're wearing, rags or riches. And it doesn't let outside factors influence what justice sees, like politics, wealth, religion, or fame. In today's world, we see, sadly, too many examples of the imbalance of those judicial scales. African Americans and other racial and ethnic minorities are inordinately incarcerated for crimes for which white people, even poor white people, never serve time. And like in most of the rest of the world, in the United States, the poor in the U.S. cannot afford the same kind of justice as the rich. Is it just that 1% of the American population holds the vast majority of this country's wealth? Is it just and balanced that women continue to be paid less than men? That the wealthy pay a smaller percentage of their income to taxes that take care of all of us? Is it justice that separates families at our borders for the administrative violation, not a criminal violation, of crossing into our country without papers or authority? And by the way, there is someone working for justice on this. How many of you have heard of Justice for Our Neighbors? JFON. Well, now you're going to hear about it today. Justice for Our Neighbors is a network of immigration legal sites around the country connected to the United Methodist Church. These sites each have their own legal staff, paralegal staff, interpreters, etc., that provide immigration legal services to low-income immigrants, which most are, unless you own Chobani. And they also advocate and educate communities about our immigration system, which we know is flawed. That work that JFON does enables families to remain together, ensures that immigrants can live in the U.S. safely and permanently, and helps eligible immigrants obtain authorization to work. They carry out our mission and ministry in welcoming immigrants. These people who are our neighbors right here in Glendive, by the way. And last month, JFON, Justice for Our Neighbors, celebrated its 20th anniversary. 20 years of doing that for us. If you wonder where your apportionments go to, it's doing what we can't and often won't do. Now, I was talking about the symbolism of Lady Justice. Some people might think that that sword is only used for power and lethality and control. But its openness, the fact that it's unsheathed, shows a willingness to negotiate. And many times we've used the expression, I have double-edged sword, to describe something that is both good and bad. We have to pay attention to which way it goes. Yet today it seems like one side or the other has to win. We can't accept that they can be equally sharp. Someone gets ahead and someone loses. And by the way, a cut from a very sharp knife or blade is less painful than one from a dull-sided blade. And perhaps this is why when the weak or unsharpened justice happens, when it fails the poor or a group of people, the pain for them lingers. Now what about this blindfold? Some might say, as I said, it represents transparency as well as impartiality. If you can't see who's in front of you, their clothes, their color, etc., then you should be able to treat them fairly. Does this happen in our country? Not always. Sometimes it seems, even to me, that justice is blind and doesn't see the hurt inflicted by her decisions. A case in point is the United Methodist Church's Judicial Council, who this week we expected to have a ruling on the traditional plan going forward for the United Methodist Church, ways and opportunities for congregations to disaffiliate if they choose to, for whatever reason. And neither one of those issues were taken care of. They chose instead to kick most of it as a can down the road. Instead, they're going for the eyes wide open, yet unfair, unbalanced, and unjust approach to the treatment of openly gay clergy and church members. Folks, separate but equal never, ever works. It's been tried. If we as United Methodists espouse an open communion table, which we will celebrate in a few minutes, how can we denounce any clergy from offering that sacrament or denying the acceptance of it to any person? And there are some people who deny this holy, holy service, this sacred ritual, based on political or social differences among the clergy person and the congregation. This is not the United Methodist way, I am happy and privileged to say. Now let's talk about that prophet Habakkuk. He wrote this himself. And the reason why I want you to go back and read it is because I want you to hear your voice lamenting the same things he did. We just heard it. Read another interpretation, that's fine. It's one man's dialogue trying to find reasons for the injustice in the world and asking God, why haven't you done something about it? He's not asking for everybody, he wants to know for himself. And his words do mirror our own when we lament the state of the world and wonder why God doesn't intervene in all of the injustice. And like Habakkuk, we can get pretty self-righteous too. And we may say with our hands on our hips or our fist in the air, hey God, what about this? Why haven't you done something? But yet, because Habakkuk is a righteous and faithful man, he was provided with a vision. He's blessed with a statement from God that warns him that those who trust in their own power and might will eventually be lost, and those who are righteous will receive justice. What a bold and courageous person he was. And I've said often that God doesn't want us to follow along meekly without ever questioning Him. He will give us the answers if we ask and if we challenge. Habakkuk got right in God's face, as we might say today, and he got an answer. Now, Pamela Cooper White, and she wrote a commentary to explain how this righteous man could show such defiance to God. He was even angry if you read it. And she says the paradox of lament is that there